Tonight, the Vatican is on fire with anticipation. For the first time in centuries, a conclave packed with new unknown cardinals from every corner of the globe is about to explode the old order. These fresh faces aren't just voting, they're rewriting the rules, breaking ancient alliances, and daring to dream beyond tradition. The Church stands on the edge of a revolution, and the next pope will not be chosen by the old guard, but by the boldest newcomers the world has ever seen. They bring with them the hopes and wounds of their people, the cries for justice from Africa, the dreams of peace from Asia, the longing for dignity from Latin America. The old alliances are fracturing. The once mighty European bloc is now a minority. The Italians, who produced more popes than any other nation, are divided and uncertain. The Americans and Canadians, once united, now split along ideological lines. The Africans and Asians, long ignored, find their voices growing stronger. Traditionalists worry that too much change will erode doctrine and identity, while progressives push for even bolder reforms. Yet the Pope's gentle authority and insistence on unity have kept the Church from fracturing. He has shown that leadership is not about domination, but about walking with the people, listening, discerning, and building bridges. The world has taken notice. The Church's renewed commitment to the poor, to migrants, to the environment, and to peace has made it a moral voice in global affairs. The Pope's calls for sustainable development, interfaith dialogue, and the protection of creation echo far beyond the walls of the Vatican. As the EN-Ext conclave approaches in the imagination of the faithful, the lessons of this era remain clear. The Church's future depends on its ability to listen to change and to remain rooted in the Gospel's call to love and serve. The revolution unleashed by the conclave of 2025 is not merely a matter of new faces or new policies, but a new heart, a church that is truly universal, humble, and alive. In the words of Pope Francis II, echoing his predecessor, "Let us walk together. Let us build a church where everyone has a place, where mercy is our law, and hope our gift to the world." The journey continues, and the world watches as the Catholic Church, renewed and transformed, steps boldly into its new era. As this extraordinary chapter in the Church's history closes, we stand witness to a revolution that began with the courage to break with centuries-old traditions and embrace the true diversity of God's people. The conclave of 2025 was not just about electing a new pope. It was about opening the doors to hope, healing, and a future where every voice matters. Pope Francis II's journey is only beginning, but the spirit of renewal he embodies belongs to all of us. If this story of transformation, faith, and unity has inspired you, don't let the conversation end here. Subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the world's most powerful moments of change. Leave your thoughts and hopes for the Church's future in the comments below. Your voice is part of this new era. Together, let's keep walking forward in hope. The Latin Americans, emboldened by Francis's papacy, are no longer content to play supporting roles. Outside the crowds wait. Some pray, clutching rosaries and candles. Others wave flags, chant slogans, or simply watch, hoping to glimpse history. The world's media is here in force, broadcasting every rumor and every puff of smoke to billions of viewers. For many, the conclave is a spectacle, a glimpse into a world of secrets and power. For Catholics, it is something more, a moment of hope, fear, and faith. As the cardinals take their seats, the tension is palpable. Some are veterans of past conclaves, their faces lined with experience. Others are newcomers, uncertain but determined. All know that the decisions made here will echo far beyond the walls of the Vatican. The Church is at a crossroads. The world is watching. The first day is spent in prayer and reflection. The cardinals listen to a meditation on the responsibilities of their office, a reminder that they are not just politicians, but servants of God and the people. They eat in silence, their conversations hushed and careful. Alliances begin to form. Old friendships are rekindled and new bonds are forged. The air is thick with speculation. Who will emerge as the frontrunner? Will the conclave be short and decisive or long and contentious? As night falls, the cardinals retire to their simple rooms in the Domus Sanctae, Marthi, the Vatican guest house. Some pray, some read, some pace the halls in quiet conversation. Outside the crowd's thin, but the lights in St. Peter's Square burn on. The world waits for the first sign, the first puff of smoke, the first hint of what the future will bring. Inside the Vatican, the sense of history is overwhelming. The cardinals know they are not just electing a leader, they are shaping the soul of the church. The conclave is a moment of crisis, but also of possibility. The traditions of centuries weigh heavily, but the winds of change are blowing. The church stands on the threshold of a new era, and no one knows what tomorrow will bring. The conclave has begun. The world holds its breath. Part 2. Dawn breaks over Rome, but within the Vatican walls, time seems suspended. The cardinals rise early, some from restless sleep, others from long hours of prayer. The Domus Sanctae. Marthi is quiet. The only sounds the soft shuffle of slippers on marble and the low murmur of greetings in dozens of languages. For many, this is their first conclave, a moment they never imagined, now thrust upon them by history and providence. The morning is filled with ritual. The cardinals gather for Mass, their voices joining in ancient hymns that echo through the chapel's stone arches. The gospel is read in Latin, but its message is universal. Feed my sheep. The weight of those words hangs over every heart. Each cardinal knows that the man they elect will inherit not just a title, but the cares and wounds of a global flock. After breakfast, the procession to the Sistine Chapel begins. The cardinals move in solemn silence, scarlet robes, flowing faces set with determination and anxiety. The world's cameras catch only glimpses of the sacred march, but inside every step is heavy with meaning. Michelangelo's frescoes gaze down upon them, saints and sinners alike, as if to remind them that history will judge what they do today. The first scrutiny, the initial round of voting, is about to begin. Each cardinal receives a ballot, inscribed with the Latin words, Eligo in summum pontificem, ye elect as supreme pontiff. The process is both simple and profound. Each man writes the name of his chosen candidate. 8 folds the ballot and walks to the altar. There he raises his hand in oath. I call, as my witness, Christ the Lord, who will be my judge, that my vote is given to the one whom before God I think should be elected. What happens behind those locked doors will shake the very foundation of faith and power for over 1 billion souls. Stay with us, because history is being made right now, and nothing will ever be the same. Subscribe now and comment your pick for the next revolutionary pope. Rome, May 7th, 2025. The Eternal City thrums with anticipation. The ballots are dropped into a chalice, then counted and read aloud by the scrutineers. This first vote is rarely decisive. It is a test of the waters, a way to measure the strength of various camps. The names written are many, reflecting the conclave's diversity. Some votes go to well-known figures. Cardinal Tagle of the Philippines, Cardinal Turkson of Ghana, Cardinal Zuppi of Italy, Cardinal Aveline of France. Others are surprises. Cardinals from Vietnam, India, Brazil, even the United States. Already, it is clear this is not a conclave of the old order. The votes are scattered, the alliances fluid. As the ballots are burned, black smoke curls from the Sistine Chapel's chimney. The crowd outside groans, a signal that no decision has been reached, but inside the atmosphere is charged. The cardinals return to their seats, some exchanging glances, others lost in thought. The process will continue, round after round, until consensus is reached. During the break, conversations begin in earnest. In corners and corridors, cardinals from Asia and Africa compare notes. Latin Americans cluster together speaking in rapid Spanish. A group of North Americans quietly discuss strategy, while a handful of Europeans look uneasy, aware that their influence is waning. For the first time, cardinals from the peripheries, the new world of Catholicism, sense their power. The old alliances that once ruled conclaves are fractured. The Italian bloc, once the kingmakers, is divided between reformers and traditionalists. The Europeans, though still numerous, are no longer united. The Americans are split, some favoring bold change, others wary of moving too fast. But the Asians and Africans, many appointed by Pope Francis himself, are energized. They speak of a church that listens, that serves, that reaches out to the poor and forgotten. Their vision is not just for their own continents, but for a global church. In private conversations, the name of Cardinal Tagle comes up again and again. His story resonates, the son of immigrants, a pastor who walks among the poor, a theologian who speaks of mercy and inclusion. He is seen as a bridge, a man who can unite East and West, North and South. But there is also talk of Cardinal Turkson, whose passion for justice and care for creation has inspired many. And then there are the dark horses cardinals, whose names are little known outside their own countries, but whose charisma and conviction are winning allies. The afternoon brings a second ballot. The process repeats prayer, voting, counting, burning. Again, the smoke is black, no decision, but the pattern is emerging. The votes for Tagle grow. Turkson's support is strong in Africa, but less so elsewhere. The Europeans rally behind Zuppi, hoping for a compromise. The Americans are still divided. The conclave is in motion, but the outcome is far from certain. As evening falls, the cardinals return to their rooms, the halls of the Domus Sanctae. Martha buzz with quiet conversation. Some cardinals pray in the chapel seeking guidance. Others walk the gardens lost in thought. The sense of history is overwhelming. Each man knows that tomorrow could bring a breakthrough or a deadlock. Outside, the crowds remain. Some pray for a quick decision, others for the right one. The world's media speculates wildly, but the truth is known only to those within the Vatican's walls. The conclave is a world apart, governed by its own rules and rhythms. But one thing is clear. To all, this conclave is different. The faces, the voices, the dreams are new. The church is changing before the world's eyes. And as the cardinals prepare for another day, the question hangs in the air. Will the next pope truly reflect the global diverse and restless flock he is called to serve, or will the old order reassert itself, holding back the tide of change for another generation? Within the Sistine Chapel, the answer is being written, one ballot at a time. Part 3. The second day of the conclave dawns with a sense of urgency. The cardinals, now more familiar with the rhythms and silences of their confinement, gather again in the Domus Sanctae. Martha, for a simple breakfast. The air is thick with anticipation and whispered speculation. Some cardinals exchange polite greetings, but most are lost in thought, their minds turning over names, alliances, and the weight of what lies ahead. After morning prayers, the procession to the Sistine Chapel begins anew. The solemnity of the moment is palpable. Pilgrims, journalists, and the merely curious crowd, the cobblestone streets around Vatican City, their faces lit by the glow of smartphones and the ancient hope that something miraculous is about to unfold. The air is heavy with incense and expectation. Above it all, the great dome of St. Peter's Basilica looms a silent witness to centuries of faith, scandal, and change. Inside the Vatican's fortified walls, the world's most secretive and consequential election is about to begin. The world outside is waking up to headlines of deadlock in the Vatican, but inside the cardinals know that the real work is only just beginning. The first ballot of the day is cast in silence. The only sound, the soft rustle of paper and the footsteps of each cardinal approaching the altar. Each vote is a prayer, a hope, a risk. The results of the third scrutiny are revealing. The votes for Tagle continue to rise, his support now extending beyond Asia and parts of Latin America. Cardinal Turkson remains a strong contender, especially among the African and justice-oriented cardinals. Cardinal Zuppi holds the European bloc, but his numbers are stagnant. A few votes drift toward other names: Aveline Pizzaballa, Provost, and some lesser-known cardinals from India and Brazil. The conclave is still wide open, but the momentum is shifting. During the mid-morning break, the corridors of the Vatican become a hive of quiet negotiation. Cardinals from the peripheries, Africa, Asia, Latin America, gather in small groups, their conversations animated but discreet. For many, this is the first time their voices carry real weight in a papal election. The old European order is not just being challenged, it is being bypassed. The new alliances are not based on geography alone, but on a shared vision for the Church, a Church that listens, that heals, that dares to change. Tagle's supporters are tireless. They speak of his humility, his ability to bridge cultures, his unwavering commitment to the poor and marginalized. He is the face of the new Church. One African cardinal whispers, he is the hope for those who have never had a voice, but the resistance is real. Some cardinals worry that Tagle will move too quickly, that his reforms will deepen divisions or alienate traditionalists. Others fear that a pope from Asia will not be able to unite the global Church, or that he lacks the political cunning needed to navigate the Vatican's labyrinthine bureaucracy. The afternoon brings another ballot. The process is unchanged, but the atmosphere is charged. The votes for Tagle climb higher still. Turkson's numbers hold steady, but the gap is closing. Zuppi's support begins to erode as some Europeans, sensing the shifting winds, quietly switch their votes. The Americans remain divided, but a growing number are drawn to Tagle's vision of a church that is both compassionate and courageous. As the ballots are burned and black smoke once again rises above the Sistine Chapel, the world outside groans in disappointment. But inside, the cardinals sense that a breakthrough is near. The conversations grow more intense, the alliances more fluid. Some cardinals, exhausted by the tension and uncertainty, begin to talk openly of compromise. Others, emboldened by the momentum, push harder for their candidate. That evening, the cardinals gather for a final round of discussion before retiring for the night. The mood is somber but hopeful. Tagle himself is quiet, his face a mask of humility and prayer. He knows the risks, the burdens, the expectations. He knows that if he is chosen, he will not only be the first Asian pope, but the face of a church that is finally truly global. As night falls over Rome, the city holds its breath. The chrome WDS in St. Peter's Square, thin, but the lights remain. The world waits for a sign, a puff of white smoke, a new name, a new era. Inside the Vatican, the cardinals prepare for another day. Some pray for guidance, others for courage. All know that the next vote could change the course of history. The conclave is no longer just a ritual of tradition. It has become a crucible of transformation. The Church stands on the brink, not only of a new pontiff, but of a new identity. The old ways are giving way to something unexpected, something revolutionary. And as the cardinals close their eyes in restless sleep, the future of Catholicism hangs in the balance, waiting to be written by the hands of men who have come from every corner of the earth. Part 4. As the conclave stretches into its next day, the Vatican remains sealed off from the world, the Sistine Chapel transformed into a crucible of prayer, tension, and possibility. The 133 cardinal electors, drawn from a record 70 nations, move through the ancient rituals, with a sense of both gravity and anticipation. The world's attention is fixed on the chimney above the chapel, waiting for the signal that will announce a new era for the Catholic Church. The process is as old as it is mysterious. After the public Mass, pro elegendo Romano Pontifice at St. The death of Pope Francis has left the Catholic Church at a crossroads. For many, he was a revolutionary, the first pope from the global south, a man who spoke of mercy before judgment, who washed the feet of prisoners, who challenged the powerful and comforted the forgotten. For others, he was a disruptor, a pope who unsettled the old order and left the church divided. Now the question is not only who will wear the white cassock next, but what kind of church will emerge from this conclave? Peter's Basilica. The cardinals return to their temporary residence at Casa Santa Marta, then process into the Sistine Chapel in the afternoon. Here beneath Michelangelo's Last Judgment, they are cut off from all outside contact. No phones, no media, no whispers from the world beyond. Vatican security ensures absolute secrecy, deploying advanced technology to block any possible leaks. Inside, the atmosphere is both sacred and electric. Ballots are distributed, each inscribed with the solemn words, Eligo in sumum pontificem. The cardinals write their chosen name, fold the ballot, and approach the altar swearing before God that their vote is given in good conscience. The ballots are counted, scrutinized, and then burned. Black smoke for no decision, white for a new pope. The first rounds yield no consensus. This is expected. History shows that a pope is rarely elected on the first day. Instead, the early votes reveal the shape of the conclave, the alliances, the hopes, the hesitations. The names on the lips of many are those who represent the church's new face: Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle of the Philippines, Cardinal Pietro Parolin of Italy, Cardinal Peter Turkson of Ghana, and Cardinal Matteo Zuppi of Italy. Each brings a different vision, a different promise, but it is Tagle who is emerging as the symbol of change. At 67, he is seen as young by Vatican standards, and his story resonates far beyond the walls of Rome. Tagle has led the Vatican's dicastery for evangelization, giving him influence across the developing world. Known for his humility, warmth, and progressive stance, he is often called the Asian Francis, a sign that his election would be a clear continuation of the reforms and openness championed by the late Pope Francis. The bookmakers now place Tagle as a top contender, his odds rising above even those of Parolin, the Vatican's seasoned Secretary of State. If chosen, Tagle would become the first Asian pope in history, a powerful message to the 1.4 billion Catholics worldwide that the Church is truly global and ready to embrace its fastest growing regions. His supporters see him as a bridge between continents, cultures, and generations, a leader who can speak to the hopes of the poor, the young, and the marginalized. Yet the path is not without challenge. Some cardinals express concern about Tagle's administrative record, pointing to past issues during his leadership in Vatican organizations. Others wonder if the Church is ready for such a bold break from European tradition, or if the old guard will rally around a more familiar diplomatic figure like Parolin. Still, the momentum is undeniable. Tagle's name appears on more and more ballots. his vision of a compassionate, outward-looking church, gaining traction with each round. The process itself is grueling. With each failed ballot, the pressure mounts. The cardinals pray, consult, and negotiate, sometimes in hushed tones, sometimes in animated debate. After every 3 days without a result, the rules require a pause for prayer and reflection, a chance to seek the Holy Spirit's guidance anew. If consensus remains elusive after 30 ballots, the rules allow for a runoff between the two leading candidates. Outside, the world waits. Crowds fill St. Peter's Square, their eyes fixed on the tiny chimney. The media speculate, the faithful pray, and observers note the historic diversity of this conclave, a sign that the Church is no longer the preserve of a single continent or culture. As the day draws to a close, the cardinals return to their rooms, exhausted but resolute. The ballots are burned, the smoke is black, and the world is left to wonder, will tomorrow bring white smoke, and with it the dawn of a new era? Will the Church choose a leader who reflects its emerging diversity and the spirit of Francis, or will it turn back to the familiar embrace of tradition? Within the Sistine Chapel, the answer is being written, one ballot, one prayer, one act of courage at a time. The revolution is not yet complete, but the winds of change are unmistakable. The College of Cardinals gathers in the Apostolic Palace. 133 men robed in scarlet, representing 71 nations. Never before has the assembly been so large, so diverse, so unpredictable. The old days when conclaves were dominated by Italians and Europeans are gone. The conclave continues, and the world holds its breath. Part 5. The third day of the conclave dawns with Rome holding its breath. The world's attention is fixed on the Vatican, where the most diverse college of cardinals in history continues its sacred and secretive task. Inside the Sistine Chapel, 133, cardinals from 70 countries gather again beneath Michelangelo's Last Judgment. The weight of centuries and the hopes of 4 billion Catholics pressing upon every heart. The process is relentless. 4 ballots each day, 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, each one a test of alliances, vision, and faith. No one is allowed to leave except for meals and rest. All communication with the outside world is cut off. The cardinals are isolated, focused, and aware that every vote could tip the balance and shape the future of the Church for decades. As the ballots are distributed, each cardinal writes the name of the man they believe should be the next Supreme Pontiff, whispering a prayer before dropping the folded slip into the urn. The votes are counted by 3 scrutineers, read aloud, threaded together, and then burned. Black smoke rises again and again, signaling to the world that no decision has been reached, but inside momentum is building. The early rounds have revealed the frontrunners: Cardinal Pietro Parolin of Italy, the Vatican's seasoned Secretary of State; Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle of the Philippines, the Asian Francis and symbol of a global compassionate church; Cardinal Peter Turkson of Ghana, the champion of social justice; and Cardinal Matteo Zuppi of Italy, a moderate reformer. Each name represents not just a person, but a vision for the Church's future. Tagle's support grows with each ballot. His appeal stretches from Asia to Latin America and into Africa, where many see him as a bridge between continents and cultures. His humility, warmth, and commitment to the poor have won him admirers across the globe. For the first time, the possibility of an Asian pope feels real, electrifying the conclave and the crowds outside. Yet, the conclave remains wide open. Parolin commands respect for his diplomatic skill and experience, and some cardinals see him as a stabilizing force in uncertain times. Turkson's advocacy for justice and the environment resonates with cardinals from the global south. Zuppi's reputation as a peacemaker and moderate reformer makes him a compromise candidate for those wary of dramatic change. The voting continues, and with every round, alliances shift. Some cardinals, sensing the momentum behind Tegel, begin to switch their support. Others hold fast to their favorites, unwilling to yield. The tension is palpable. Every ballot is a crossroads. Outside St. Peter's Square is packed with faithful and curious alike, their eyes glued to the chimney above the Sistine Chapel. The world's media speculate, but no one knows what is happening behind those locked doors. The sense of anticipation is overwhelming. By the afternoon, the cardinals are weary but determined. The possibility of a breakthrough looms. If no pope is elected, after 3 days, tradition calls for a pause, a day of prayer and reflection before voting resumes. But the momentum behind Tegel is undeniable. His vision of a church that listens, serves, and embraces the world's diversity is winning hearts and minds. As the final ballots of the day are cast and burned, all eyes turn to the chimney. Black smoke rises again, but inside the sense of history is unmistakable. The church stands on the brink of a new era, one shaped by voices, Ephraim, the peripheries, by cardinals who know the struggles of the poor and the hopes of the young. The conclave is not just a ritual, it is a revolution in slow motion, unfolding, ballot by ballot, prayer by prayer. The world waits for the white smoke that will signal not just a new pope, but a new direction for the Catholic Church. One that may for the first time truly reflect its global heart. Part 6. Inside the Sistine Chapel, the tension is electric. The cardinals cloaked in scarlet and centuries of tradition have reached a pivotal moment. The ballots have been cast, counted, and recounted. The faces in the hall reflect the changing face of global Catholicism. Cardinals from the barrios of Manila, the slums of Lagos, the favelas of Rio, the villages of Vietnam, the bustling cities of India and Korea. For the first time, the majority of electors come from outside Europe. The mood is tense, electric. The cardinals know they are not just choosing a pope, they are choosing the direction of the church for generations. The world outside is restless, whispers of shifting alliances and rising momentum for the candidate of change ripple through the marble halls. The world outside waits, eyes glued to screens, hearts pounding with anticipation. All attention is focused on the ancient chimney above the chapel, the signal that will tell the world if a new pope has been chosen. The ritual is as old as the conclave itself. After each round of sacred balloting, the ballots are collected and burned in a special stove within the Sistine Chapel. For centuries, the color of the smoke, black or white, has been the church's way of communicating with the outside world. Black smoke means no consensus has been reached. More voting lies ahead. White smoke, however, is the sign that history has been made. A new pope has been elected, but the process has evolved. To avoid confusion, the Vatican now uses chemical cartridges to ensure the smoke is clearly black or white. When the moment arrives and the ballots of a successful vote are burned, the white smoke billows unmistakably from the chimney and the bells of St. Peter's Basilica ring out across Rome, confirming for all that a new pontiff has been chosen. Inside, the atmosphere shifts from tense deliberation to awe and prayer. The cardinal, who has received the required 2/3 majority, is quietly asked if he accepts the election. Upon his acceptance, he is immediately Pope vested in white and asked to choose his papal name. The other cardinals offer their homage, pledging obedience and support to the new leader. Outside, the reaction is immediate and global. The crowds in St. Peter's Square erupt in cheers as the white smoke appears and the bells begin to peal. News cameras capture the moment, broadcasting it live to millions around the world. Social media explodes with speculation. Who is the new pope? What will his name be? What does this mean for the future of the Church? As tradition dictates, there is a brief but dramatic pause. The new pope spends a few moments in prayer and preparation. Meanwhile, the Cardinal protodeacon steps onto the central balcony of St. Peter's Basilica. The world holds its breath for the ancient announcement, Habemus Papam. We have a pope. In that moment, the Church is transformed. The new pontiff steps into the light, appearing before the faithful and the world. For the first time, his first words, his first blessing, set the tone for a new era. Whether he is a familiar figure or an unexpected choice, his election is a signal that the Church is ready to move forward, perhaps in continuity, perhaps in bold new directions. This is the power of the Conclave. Centuries of tradition, secrecy, and prayer, culminating in a single, unmistakable sign: the white smoke, the ringing bells, the words Habemus Papam, all announce not just a new leader, but the beginning of a new chapter for the Catholic Church and for the world, watching beyond the Vatican walls. Part 7. The bells of St. Peter's Basilica are still echoing across Rome as the world's attention converges on the balcony above the square. Crowds surge forward, pressing against barricades, craning their necks to catch the first glimpse of the new pope. Reporters bark into microphones. Cameras zoom in on every movement behind the red curtains. The air is thick with anticipation, hope, and the electric sense that history is being made. Inside the newly elected Pope, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle stands in a small room known as the Room of Tears. The name is apt here. Many new popes have wept from the weight of what has just happened. Tagle is surrounded by attendants who help him into the white cassock, the symbol of his new office. There are 3 sizes prepared, for no one knows in advance who will be chosen. He is handed the white zucchetto, the skull cap worn by popes, and the fisherman's ring, the ancient signet that marks the successor of Peter Tagle's hands tremble as he looks into the mirror. He knows the world is waiting. He knows that his election is not just a personal destiny, but a sign of a church transformed, a church that now looks to Asia, to the peripheries, to the poor and the young for its future. He bows his head in prayer, asking for strength, humility, and the guidance of the Holy Spirit. The moment is overwhelming, yet there is a quiet resolve in his heart. He has been called, and he will answer. Meanwhile, the cardinals gather in the chapel, some with tears in their eyes, others with smiles of relief or wonder. The sense of rupture and renewal is unmistakable. For the first time in history, an Asian pope will step onto the balcony of St. Peter's. Many Catholics hunger for a church that is more inclusive, more transparent, more engaged with the suffering and marginalized. Others yearn for stability, clarity, and a return to tradition. The Church is pulled in 1,000 directions by the forces of modernity, politics, and faith. The conclave is the crucible where these tensions will be tested. The rituals are ancient, unchanged for centuries. The cardinals process into the Sistine Chapel, their footsteps echoing on the marble. For the first time, the voice of the global South will speak from the heart of the Church. The cardinals approach Tagle, one by one, kneeling to kiss his ring, pledging obedience and support. The unity of the Church is on display, even as the world knows that deep divisions remain. Outside, the crowd is restless. The red curtains flutter. The Cardinal protodeacon, his voice trembling with emotion, steps forward to the microphone. The ancient words ring out over the square and across the world. Annuntio, Vobis, Gaudium, Magnum, Habemus, Papam. I announce to you a great joy. We have a pope. The crowd erupts in cheers, applause and tears. Flags wave, people embrace, and the sense of history being made is palpable. The cardinal continues. eminentissim, co reverendissimum, dominum Ludovicum Antonium Sanctae Romanae Ecclesiae Cardinalem Taga qui sibi nomen imposuit Franciscus Secundus, the most eminent and most reverend Lord Luis Antonio Cardinal of the Holy Roman Church Tagle, who takes for himself the name Francis II. The choice of name is a thunderclap. By taking the name Francis Assisi, Tagle signals a clear intention to continue the legacy of Pope Francis, a church of mercy, humility, and outreach to the margins. The crowd gasps, then cheers anew. The world's media scramble to translate, analyze, and explain the significance. Tagle steps onto the balcony. The lights blaze, the cameras flash, and the world sees for the first time the gentle smiling face of the new pope. He raises his hand, not in regal authority, but in a gesture of blessing and peace. The applause swells, echoing through the square and down the avenues of Rome. His first words are humble, spoken in Italian, then repeated in English, Spanish, Tagalog, and French. Sign of the Church's new universality. Brothers and sisters, good evening. You have come from all over the world to this square, and I come to you from the ends of the earth. I thank you for your faith, your prayers, and your hope. Let us walk together as one church, one people, one family. He pauses, the emotion clear in his voice. I ask you to pray for me. Before I bless you, let us pray together for the church, for the world, for the poor, for peace. The square falls silent as the new pope bows his head. Millions join in prayer from Manila to Madrid, from Lagos to Los Angeles. In that moment, the church feels united, renewed, and open to the future. The blessing follows, simple but powerful. Urbi et Orbi, to the city and the world. With those words, Tagle's papacy begins. But even as the celebrations continue, the challenges ahead are clear. The church is more diverse than ever, but also more divided. The wounds of scandal, the pressures of secularization, the demands for reform and justice, all these await the new pope. Tagle knows that his election is both a mandate and a risk. He must lead not just with words, but with deeds. His first acts are symbolic but telling. Instead of returning to the papal apartments, he chooses to remain in the simple guest house where the cardinals have been staying, following the example of Pope Francis. He visits the kitchens, greeting the staff who have served the conclave. He meets with the Vatican security guards, thanking them for their vigilance. He sends a message to the sick and elderly, assuring them of his prayers and love. Within hours, Tagle announces his intention to visit the poor neighborhoods of Rome, to meet with refugees and migrants, to reach out to those who feel abandoned by the church. He calls for a synod, a worldwide gathering of bishops, priests, religious and lay people, to discuss the future of the church in the 21st century. He asks for transparency in the Vatican's finances and pledges to continue the reforms begun by his predecessor. The response is immediate and passionate. Some hail Tagle as a prophet, a sign that the Holy Spirit is guiding the church into a new era. Others are wary, fearing that his openness and humility will weaken the church's authority or invite further division. The world's media are divided. Some celebrate the choice, others question whether Tagle has the strength to lead such a complex and wounded institution. But Tagle is undeterred. He knows that the path ahead will be difficult, that he will face opposition from within and without. He knows that the expectations are enormous, that every word and gesture will be scrutinized. Above them, Michelangelo's Last Judgment looms a reminder of the gravity of their task. They swear an oath of secrecy, promising never to reveal what happens within these walls. the doors are locked. The outside world falls away. For as long as it takes, the cardinals will eat sleep, pray, and deliberate together, cut off from all contact. No phones, no internet, no whispers to the press, only the Holy Spirit and one another. But he also knows that he is not alone. The church is not a fortress, but a family. Its strength lies not in power, but in love. In the days that follow, Tagel's papacy begins to take shape. He meets with representatives of other Christian denominations, with leaders of other faiths, with atheists and agnostics. He speaks of dialogue, of listening, of building bridges. He calls for the church to be a field hospital for the wounded, not a museum for the perfect. He urges Catholics to go out into the world to serve the poor, to welcome the stranger, to care for creation. The world watches, waits, and wonders. Will this new pope succeed where others have failed? Will he be able to unite a divided church to heal its wounds, to inspire a new generation of believers? Only time will tell, but for now, hope is alive. The conclave has ended, but the revolution has just begun. As night falls over Rome, the lights of St. Peter's Square shine brighter than ever. The crowds linger, singing, praying, celebrating. In the Vatican, the new pope kneels in his private chapel, alone, with God, praying for wisdom, courage, and grace. The world has a new shepherd, the church has a new face, and the journey into a new era has begun. Part 9. The months following the conclave are a whirlwind of transformation, both visible and hidden. Pope Francis II, propelled by the momentum of his historic election, wastes no time in setting a new tone for the papacy and the global church. The Vatican, once a bastion of rigid protocol and insular tradition, now pulses with the energy of change and the hum of voices from every continent. Francis II's first major act is to convene a global synod, an unprecedented gathering of bishops, priests, religious, and lay people from across the world. The agenda is bold: the role of women in the church, the wounds of sexual abuse, the climate crisis, the plight of migrants and refugees, and the need for a more transparent, accountable Vatican. The synod is streamed online, translated into dozens of languages, and open to questions and testimonies from ordinary Catholics. For many, it is the first time they feel truly seen and heard by Rome. The debates are passionate, sometimes painful. Women religious speak openly about their hopes and frustratio, as survivors of abuse share their stories with a dignity and gravity that silence the room. Bishops from Africa and Asia describe the struggles of their people with poverty, violence, and persecution. Young Catholics call for a church that is honest, courageous, and unafraid to confront its past. The Synod's working groups are a tapestry of cultures and experiences, united by a desire for renewal. Francis II listens more than he speaks. When he does address the assembly, his words are simple but powerful. The church is not a fortress, but a family. We must not fear the truth. We must not fear the world. Only by listening to the cries of our brothers and sisters can we be the church that Christ calls us to be. The effect is electric. Even those who disagree with his vision cannot deny the sincerity and humility of his leadership. The Synod's conclusions are sweeping. Recommendations include greater roles for women in church leadership, mandatory reporting of abuse, new guidelines or ecological stewardship, and a renewed commitment to interfaith dialogue. The Vatican bureaucracy, long resistant to change, is forced to adapt. Francis II appoints new officials from Africa, Asia, and Latin America, breaking the centuries-old dominance of European clerics. The Curia is streamlined, its finances open to independent audit, and its operations made more transparent. Outside the Vatican, the effects are immediate and dramatic. Dioceses around the world launch listening sessions, inviting the faithful to share their hopes and concerns. parishes open their doors to the homeless, the addicted, the alienated. Catholic universities and schools launch new programs in social justice, environmental science, and interreligious dialogue. The Church's social media presence explodes, reaching millions of young people who had long felt ignored. Not everyone is pleased. Some traditionalists warn that the Church is moving too fast, risking confusion and division. They worry that cherished doctrines will be watered down, that the Church's identity will be lost in a sea of modernity. But Francis II is undeterred. He insists that fidelity to Christ means embracing the world's pain, not hiding from it. But beneath the solemnity, there is a sense of something new stirring. Pope Francis's legacy is everywhere. He appointed more than 2/3 of the cardinals who will vote in this conclave. Many of them are men of the peripheries, pastors who have lived through war, poverty, and persecution. They are not palace politicians, but shepherds who know the smell of their sheep. He reminds the faithful that the gospel is always new, always challenging, always calling the Church to conversion. The Pope's travels reflect his priorities. He visits refugee camps in the Middle East, prays with survivors of war in Ukraine and Sudan, and celebrates Mass in the barrios of Latin America. He meets with imams, rabbis, and Buddhist monks, seeking common ground for peace and justice. His humility and openness disarm critics and inspire millions. The image of the Pope kneeling in prayer beside a Muslim refugee or embracing a child orphaned by violence becomes a symbol of the Church's new direction. Media coverage is relentless. Headlines proclaim a Catholic spring, a revolution in Rome, a new era for Christianity. Some call Francis II a prophet, others a radical. His critics accuse him of naivete. His supporters hail him as the answer to decades of stagnation and scandal. Through it all, the Pope remains steady, grounded in prayer and the conviction that the Holy Spirit is guiding the Church through uncharted waters. The Jubilee year becomes a global pilgrimage of hope. Millions flock to Rome, but even more participate from afar, joining in prayer service and study. The Church's wounds are far from healed, and the challenges are immense, but the sense of possibility is real. For the first time in a generation, Catholics feel that their voices matter, that their Church is alive, and that the future is open. As autumn approaches, Francis II calls the faithful to a worldwide day of prayer and fasting for peace. The response is overwhelming. Cathedrals, chapels, and homes fill with people of every age and background. The Pope's message is simple. Let us be builders of bridges, not walls. Let us be servants of hope, not fear. The world is watching. Christ is with us. The journey has just begun. In those words, the revolution of the conclave finds its deepest meaning. The Catholic Church, once seen as slow and unchanging, is now a force for renewal, compassion, and unity. The conclave's shockwaves continue to ripple outward, shaping not only the Church, but the world it is called to serve. Part 10. As the first year of Pope Francis II's pontificate draws to a close, the Catholic Church stands at the threshold of a new age, one shaped by the legacy of Pope Francis and the revolutionary conclave that followed. The world has witnessed not only a change in leadership, but a profound transformation in spirit, culture, and mission. The reforms of Pope Francis, now carried forward by his successor, have left an indelible mark on the Church. Synodality, a journey of listening, dialogue, and shared discernment, has become the Church's new way of being. The global synods, once rare and reserved for bishops, now include laypeople, women, and voices from the peripheries, ensuring that the Church's decisions reflect the lived reality of its diverse flock. This openness has not erased tensions or disagreements, but it has created a space where the faithful can speak honestly and be heard, embodying the God's style of mercy and accompaniment that Francis championed. Mercy remains at the heart of the Church's witness. The new Pope, inspired by his predecessor, continues to call Catholics to be a people of forgiveness, reconciliation, and hope. The wounds of abuse, division, and exclusion are not ignored or hidden, but brought into the light with humility and resolve. The Church's mission is no longer about defending power, but about serving the world's most vulnerable, echoing Francis's vision of a field hospital for the wounded. Structural reforms have taken root. The Roman Curia, once an opaque and insular bureaucracy, is now more transparent and accountable. Lay people and women hold leadership roles at the highest levels, and financial scandals have been replaced by a culture of service and stewardship. The Church's resources are increasingly directed toward education, healthcare, and social justice, especially in the global South, where Catholicism is growing most rapidly. The new pontificate has not been without resistance.